Hi, good evening. My name is Naftali Moster, and I'm the founder and executive director of Yaffed, Young Advocates for Fair Education. 3 years ago, we submitted a complaint signed by 52 Yeshiva graduates to the previous Chancellor and 7 district superintendents, alleging that many Hasidic yeshivas, particularly the boys' schools, provide little or no secular education. On average, Hasidic boys in elementary and middle school only receive 90 minutes of secular education at the end of the day and only in English and math. In high school, most Hasidic boys receive no secular education at all. I repeat, none. Instead, they spend 12 to 14 hours a day in yeshiva studying exclusively Judaic studies. No English, no math, no science, no social studies, nothing. The investigation, which will officially turn 3 years old this Saturday, has been nothing but a sham. As of last September, 2 years into the investigation, the city only visited 6 yeshivas of the 39 they were supposed to. And as of today, the city still only visited 15 of them, apparently the 15 who allowed the inspectors in. What kind of investigation is that? It appears to be guided by political considerations, not concern for the children. A year ago, Mr. Howard Friedman promised an interim report, but has not produced it. This after his predecessor promised a full report back in the spring of 2016. This stalling and stonewalling is inexcusable and unacceptable. Every passing year, thousands more children enter this system and continue to be denied a basic education and robbed of a future. Mr. Carranza, I want to welcome you to the city and express my sympathy that this has fallen on you. An investigation you're supposed to oversee, but one that is heavily controlled by a mayor who plays politics with children's rights. But please don't let him corrupt you the way he has the former Chancellor Farina, or the current General Counsel Friedman. Get to the bottom of what is happening and ensure that every child gets the education he or she deserves. And I would also like to take this opportunity to request an in-person meeting. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Jacob Aronson.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Aronson, and I'm also here because of the city's failure to address the lack of secular education in many ultra-Orthodox yeshivas. This issue is important to me because I myself grew up Orthodox and I attended an Orthodox yeshiva in New York City for 13 years. Fortunately for me, the yeshiva that I went to was different. I was not in any way deprived of a secular education. At my school, we were taught the Bible in the original Hebrew and the Talmud in the original Aramaic, but we were also taught things like math, science, and history with the same enthusiasm. Unfortunately, that's not the norm in New York's Hasidic community. But it is possible, as I know not only from my school, but also from the fact that many Hasidic girls' schools do teach secular subjects in a serious way. I, of course, do not question the right of yeshivas to exist and to teach religious studies. I certainly do not object to the rights of parents to send their children to a yeshiva, or any other school for that matter. Those types of concerns are too often brought up as a means of distraction, to divert attention from the issue at hand, that is an issue of elementary justice. There is no right to deny children an education in things like science, English, history, and geography. After listening to the stories of yeshiva graduates who didn't know what an essay was or what an atom was, I felt compelled to speak out. My school taught me how to read, write, and speak in English, and that's the reason I'm able to stand in front of you today and speak out on behalf of tens of thousands of students who barely learn any English and who don't have the ability to come and speak out and defend themselves. The fact that the city has done pretty much nothing about this is morally contemptible. Spending 3 years on an investigation with no results is an outrage. Why is it taking so long to produce a report? More and more people are waking up to this injustice, and we won't put up with it. All we want is a proper education for students who are entitled to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lucas Chasen.
Good evening. My name is Lucas Chasen. I was born and raised in Manhattan, and I was lucky enough to attend some of the best public schools in this country. Because of this, I have always taken my education for granted. I assumed that every other New Yorker had the same opportunities. After all, it only makes sense that such a prosperous city should ensure the best education for its residents, right? Then I learned about the tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jewish children who are unwittingly being denied their right to a quality secular education in yeshivas around the city. These schools do not meet the curriculum standards of every other public and private school in the city, and yet they are funded in part by our own taxpayer money. The city government has been investigating this issue for the past 3 years, but none of this administration's promises have ever been kept. When one considers the fact that the ultra-Orthodox community is our fastest growing demographic, the silent crisis that our city faces becomes clearer. I'd like everyone here to ask themselves, how do you expect New York City to remain a global financial hub in the coming decades if our fastest growing community does not even receive the most basic general education? Do you think there will be long-term economic consequences to this neglect? Ask yourself how that will in turn affect the lives of you and your children. This is far more important than some people seem to realize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chaim Nikolova.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chaim Mishalovin, and I attended a Hasidic yeshiva boarding school in New York until I was 17 years old. Our daily schedule was from 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., and during that time we studied Bible, Talmudic critical thinking, Talmudic stories, Hasidic philosophy, and more Bible. We never learned any math, science, social studies, English literature, or any other secular education, no physical ed. We were not provided any guidance towards receiving a higher education or any direction in where to go after we graduated yeshiva, if we can even call it graduation. In fact, we were actively discouraged. In my personal attempts to seek a secular education, I actually received a fine when they found a Algebra for Dummies book under my bed in the boarding school. The teachers held no degrees, they had no experience teaching, and they weren't capable of dealing with rowdy children or regulating a classroom properly, and it inhibited the ability for children to receive any education, let alone a secular education. After leaving high school, I had to fend for myself, figuring out how to gain a college education. I had to go through the GED program by myself, and it was probably the most difficult thing that I ever had to do. The No Child Left Behind Act passed Congress in 2015. The Every Child Succeeds Act passed in 2015. It's now 2018, and I implore of you to please stop inhibiting the success of yeshiva students and stop ignoring the yeshiva children left behind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Goldberg.
Panel members, I am Jason Goldberg, and I would like to present a unique perspective as to why I think the city needs to do a better job of ensuring that ultra-Orthodox Jews get an adequate education. I did not grow up an Orthodox Jew. I received a secular education at a public school. I was attracted to traditional Judaism by the intellectual rigor of the Talmud, a famous piece of Jewish literature where Jewish legalistic concepts are discussed and debated. But I was also attracted by the 12th century rabbi Maimonides, who has a hospital that bears his name only a few blocks away, who was a doctor to the Sultan in Egypt, was a prolific philosopher, and wrote one of his seminal works in Jewish philosophy in the language that was spoken by the surrounding society. And I would like to note that there are many ultra-Orthodox Jews who cannot even speak the language of the surrounding society. While he was extremely influential in the Jewish world, he also had an incredible impact on the secular world. Without a figure like Maimonides, the Jewish world would be lacking, but the secular world would be lacking as well. I believe ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities possess tons of Maimonideses, people who possess an incredible ability not just to make contributions to the Jewish world, but to the secular world as well. By not giving ultra-Orthodox Jews the secular and Jewish education they need to thrive in our modern society, the city is missing out on tons of doctors, lawyers, accountants, computer programmers, and professors that will propel our society and invigorate our economy. When the city fails to provide an adequate education to the ultra-Orthodox, the city fails not just the ultra-Orthodox, but the citizens of New York City who desperately need the high-skilled workers that a proper secular education for ultra-Orthodox Jews would produce. It is a responsibility of the city to ensure that all children are able to function in our society, and every minute the city doesn't provide an education to an ultra-Orthodox Jew, the city fails in its duty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shlomo Manowska.
Hi, Chancellor. About 20 years ago, I attended Hasidic Yeshiva High School in Brooklyn. I spent 13 to 14 hours per day in school. I had extensive education in Judaic studies, but was never offered a secular or English education. and therefore never received a high school degree. The yeshiva I attended for 3 years still exists and still does not offer any English or secular education in their curriculum. I was fortunate that our family communicated in English at home, unlike my classmates who spoke mostly Yiddish. My classmates in high school were not able to properly communicate in English, and as far as I know, none of them went on to college, and many of them today rely on public aid. I'm saddened and disappointed that the yeshiva investigation by the education department has gone nowhere. I'm kind of stunned by the apparent lack of concern by the mayor and other education officials over the worsening state of education in Hasidic schools, especially given the rapid growth of the Hasidic community and potential future economic and social crisis. I'm sure that everyone in here tonight will agree that better education, just like better health care, benefits society as a whole. I'd also like to point out that we are not self-appointed critics or disgruntled individuals, as some would like to call us. Most of us are former yeshiva students who were left extremely lacking in education. Most of us have worked hard to make up for our deficiencies, more or less, but no doubt it's been extremely challenging. I care deeply about the community and its future. There are parents within the community who currently have children in schools and are afraid to speak out. They face the fear of being ostracized or having their children expelled from schools if they speak out. If we won't speak out, who else will? These kids are the future of our city. We desperately need more oversight in these schools. I beg you to do what's right for thousands of Hasidic children in New York whose education is being neglected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi all, thank you for being here and taking time out to sit and listen to us. I'm also here tonight on behalf of Yaffed, but I'm also here on behalf of my son. He is 11, he's turning 12 in August, and he recently turned to me and said to me, "I'm so jealous, I wish I can do that too." I was telling him about the Women in Tech program that I'm gonna be doing for a week next week. I'm 31 years old, I will be entering Kingsborough Community College in the fall. My son has never written a book report, he has never had a history class, and he is the highest performer in his class of 20 to 25 students. He told me recently, all the boys look to me when they have a spelling question, even in the teacher, when the teacher is there. When I heard that his school was going to get Title I services, I was so excited. Can you imagine the patheticness of that I'm excited that my son's school is getting Title I? Why was I excited? Because they don't get anything else. They get 90 minutes, 4 days a week, not even a full school year, of math, basic reading. My son will never read Shakespeare unless I open it up to him. He knows more about the political field than I will ever, because I'm not interested in that stuff, but he reads, he is brilliant, he is smart, he's articulate, and the only reason that he speaks English, writes English, understands English is because I taught him. I know that there's a lot of noise coming from the community. We don't want it, it's not good for us, it's our right, blah, 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 blah. Don't be fooled by that. It's just a few people making a racket, and the parents in the community are afraid to speak up. They are scared of these leaders, of these bullies. They're bullies. My son is being denied an education by a New York City judge in family court. Think about that. Stand for him. Stand for him and stand for the thousands others. Please, help him and help me help him. Thank you.
Thank you.